Hey, welcome back to the Fantasy Football Weather Guys. I'm meteorologist Mike Ventures. I'm here with my good friend and colleague, meteorologist Sean Bratton, and we are here in NFL Week 17, our final week, our final episode. How are you doing, Sean?
I'm doing good, Mike. I'm doing good. Hopefully everyone out there had a really wonderful holiday. I know I did. I'm actually here with my family. And I'm excited, with the Fantasy Football Weather Guys, because we made it through all 17 weeks. And just excited to be here for the last one.
Yeah, it was a good holiday. I hope everyone else had a good holiday. I just traveled back from New York up to Boston, so I'm a little tired today. It's been a bit of a lot of people on the road. So if you are traveling on the roads, hopefully you're listening to us. We do have a podcast available here, so you guys can kind of get updated on all of our information that we're providing. But I'm glad to be back. This is leg one for us. The next leg, we're going up to my wife's family. So we're going up to the in-laws here this weekend.
True family man, Mike. True family man.
Yeah, and Sean, you've been on a big road trip. We got together last weekend. You visited Sean and Colin, who couldn't make the podcast today or the show, unfortunately, just because this was kind of a last-minute thing we did because there is a storm risk that we wanted to talk to if anyone's still playing Week 17 or DFS. So that's why we're here today. But Sean was able to come out and visit us in Boston, and it was great to see you, bud. We had a good time.
Yeah, we did. Who won that cup, Mike?
Oh, yeah. So the cup, the Fantasy Football Weather Guys Cup, went to Colin. He ended up winning the game, and he had and I think that was a testament to a very disappointing Houston Texans at Tampa Bay Buccaneers game. Not a lot of action there for us in that one. So
no, and hopefully that game did influence for those of you that were in the finals. Hopefully that game wasn't the dagger that brought you down if you were playing anybody in that game like a Winston or a Watson or any of the receiving
Hopkins. Oh, brutal game.
Yeah.
So
Perryman had an okay game.
Yeah, so Perryman brought me through. He helped me win my championship in one of my ESPN leagues. So I am a champ, at least in one league. I'm happy about that. In our other league, we had Sean in our ESPN league. I did come in second. Had disappointing performances from Tyler Lockett. He burned me. But, I mean, I have to be honest. Like, my opponent played Tyler Lockett. He played DK Metcalf. And he also played DJ Moore. So out of his 3 wide receivers, he had 0.8 points, which allowed me to get the championship, which is unfortunate for him. But
wow.
Yeah,
well, and I know for a lot of you out there, for those of you that were in the championship, you're pretty much done for the year, but there are still some people out there playing DFS and some people that actually have that option of playing the Week 17 championship. I've never done that for obvious reasons, as you know, like for instance, the Baltimore Raven game, we may see some weather there, but it doesn't really matter because guess who's not going to be playing? That the one, QB star this year, Lamar Jackson, Jackson. Sorry, Lamar Jackson.
Lamar Jackson brought a ton of champions to people, man.
They may be sitting some additional players as well, like Ingram.
Yeah.
Mark Andrews brought some people championships last week with 2 TDs. So, they may not be playing consistently this week. But if you're in the championship, we do have some weather risk for you to consider this week for this Sunday.
I think that I heard a statistic that most fantasy football leagues end by Week 16, but there is about 3% of you guys still kicking around here. So there is some weather to pay attention to, and we'll move into the forecast now and get this moving along here. So I am going to show my screen here, and excuse me for that one thing here. And so we're looking at our weather impact table for Week 17. And we have 2 caution flags out right now, but if you were to look at the weather types for a lot of these games here, we're actually seeing some sort of form of the elements in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, about 8 or 9 games there. So there's a lot of games here with that is going to experience some form of element of weather. At this point in time, we feel at least confident that 2 of these games may actually see enough of a risk to players to issue a caution flag. And that's for the Jets at Bills game and also for the Browns at Bengals game. But there are some games we are paying attention to, like specifically like the Saints and Panthers. There's some shower risk there. We'll get to that. Sean will talk about. Also in Jacksonville, we are seeing potentially, the Colts at Jaguars. We're seeing some showers and risk there, and potentially some wind in Kansas City. So I'm going to pass it over here and start off with our mean sea level pressure and precipitation maps, and we're looking at the central U.S. here. And Sean, why don't you tell us what's going on with the weather?
Yeah, so again, we have a major weather event that's going to be the one and only event in town, but it's going to be sprawling basically a third of the United States and impacting, like Mike mentioned, really two games that we're really confident in, but there are many that we're going to be needing to monitor this week from this one storm that's developing out in the West Coast. And I just want to kind of mention something even from last week. You're going to want to stick with us because originally we wouldn't put out a caution for Nashville, and luckily the Nashville, the Tennessee Titan game didn't end up being a tremendous factor, but those are the types of games that we need to monitor throughout the week because that system pushed further north than we expected. So make sure you're keeping up to date with us throughout the week. But the one system we are going to be focusing in on is you can see some precipitation in the lower left-hand corner of the screen. Mike has his cursor over it now, and that's the system that's going to be developing. There's going to be a trough that's going to be digging into the west coast of the United States, and this is actually a fairly consistent storm track we've been seeing. You can see that it's starting to wrap up and organize as it crosses the Rockies. Again, I've mentioned this term a few times. This is referred to as lee-side cyclogenesis. As the storm goes over the mountains, it basically starts to wrap up, starts to organize. And that's what we're seeing as it goes across the Great Plains states. You could see the cold front and the warm front starting to develop. And this is going to be, this right now is at Saturday night where Mike is showing. So you can see this is going through Kansas City and Green Bay and Chicago. This is going to be traveling through. So those of you going to be traveling this week, and watch out. This may be a big risk for if you have flights or if you're driving in this area, because there will be some snow to the north, but a lot of rain associated with this. Yeah. So you can see it's, at this point, it's starting to wrap up. We refer to this, it's starting to occlude, it's starting to cut off.
This is Sunday morning.
And this is going into Sunday morning. So, Mike, if you actually could go to our East Coast map,
sure.
That would be great, because we could kind of see how this filters into the eastern third of the United States. And Mike, if you could kind of point out that cold front for us.
Yep.
This right here, this is what's going to be impacting a lot of our games. And eventually what's going to happen is we're actually going to have another low pressure form off of the triple point. And that's basically where the warm cold front and occluded front connect. And we're going to have secondary development. But this is the sector that we're going to be really concerned with. And you can see this is game time. Mike, if you point out the Buffalo location here. Yep, right there. So that's one we're concerned with. And then if you could also point out the Cincinnati location. Now, the Cincinnati location looks like it may, and Mike and I were talking about this, may look like it's more convective in nature, which means, I think, Mike, you were looking at some things and looking like there were maybe a squall line that comes through. And the issue with that is the timing with those is sometimes very sensitive.
Yeah, and they could be pretty quick too. They're not going to be a prolonged rain event, right? So you might get this burst of heavy rain, lightning, potentially thunder, and even some gusty winds at some point. And trying to predict those types of passages are tough. So while this is one model, right, the American model of GFS, it shows that this line of storms, you can kind of see it for those who are looking at the YouTube video, which is at FFWeatherguys on the YouTube channel. Subscribe, guys. This could potentially be, you could see this in the precipitations, and it's to the west, but there are some models that are saying this line of storms could potentially be to the east of the game by the game time. So it's a timing issue. Convective things are tough.
And like Mike, you said, I mean, these are, you can see there's some deep purples in there, almost getting to like almost a pinkish color. Those are really high precipitation rates associated with this. But the Buffalo location, we're looking at more of a sustained rain event that we're a little bit more confident it's going to last the duration of the game. And that's usually where we see our more significant impacts. Now, and looking at this, you'll say, well, wow, there looks like there's a lot more games that could be potentially influenced with this. And you're right. We just don't have we have to figure out a little bit more of the timing associated with this storm. If this pushes through a little bit quicker, as Mike mentioned, we may be looking at impacts to the Panthers game, possibly even the Giants-Eagles game, because they don't start until 4:30 Eastern time. And it looks like we also have some convection over the Florida region, maybe impacting Jacksonville as well. And that's where Mike has his cursor right now. So
yeah, there seems to be there's like prefrontal convection all the way from east coast of Florida, which it would impact the Tampa game, and up through the Carolinas, right? So we're going to have to keep an eye on the Panthers game as well for some of these scattered cells that could potentially produce some heavy rain during the game.
And the other thing that we're looking at, Mike, I don't know if you have the wind map up.
I will. Before we get to that, just before we close out here, this is around 2 p.m. Sunday. We go to around 7 p.m. on Sunday night. And we do see that there could be some rain sneaking into the Baltimore Ravens game as well as the Giants, as Sean mentioned.
Yeah.
These look like if it's going to rain there, it's going to be later in the game, maybe like the second half. So we're not putting out any caution flags now because at least you have a good half of football there. And that's something we're going to keep an eye on for timing as well.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, good. And just like Mike said, keep with us here because we had to do this week with the Titans game,
Yep.
where we had to put out, potential. I don't think we put out a caution, but it was borderline because that system pushed further north than we expect. And the same thing can happen here for the Ravens and Giants. So keep up to date.
Let's shift over to the wind here and talk about the wind risk on Sunday here for the Kansas City.
So as this storm passes, we're going to have a lot of northerly flow. So as that cold front passes, we have a lot of cold air filtering in, and sometimes that causes the winds to spike up a little bit as well. So you can see, Mike, if you could kind of point out where those winds are wrapping around, typically where the cold air.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Yeah,
so
right in there.
Counterclockwise flow here.
Exactly, and you'll see. Over some of the states to the northwest of our Kansas City location, that you have winds approaching 15, 20 miles an hour. Now, this is game time right now for Kansas City. We expect winds to pick up maybe a little bit as game continues. This is a borderline call for us. Yeah. We're looking at maybe 10 to 15 miles an hour, maybe gusts getting up a little bit higher. But we're veering away from the caution right now. If we get any more confidence that these winds will potentially be higher, we'll put out, potentially a caution. But right now we're steering away from that. Yeah,
just because we're not going to talk a lot about the Kansas City game here. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. But, I mean, if there is winds around 10, 15 miles per hour, Sean, are you worried about starting any Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes, your deep passers, or are you worried about your Chargers, right? They're playing the Chargers now. So
they're playing the Chargers. They are. I mean, we saw Patrick Mahomes play Denver in the snow. It was a mess. And one of the things that we're realizing this year is that good offenses in really bad weather play those pieces. Play the players that are playing in the bad weather on the good offenses. Because here's what's happening. Those defenses in the wet weather, in the snow and the rain, they're not able to keep up. Those good offenses, those sure-footed receivers, those accurate QBs. We saw this also with Aaron Rodgers versus the Giants.
Well, these were snow games, right? I mean, it
all snow games.
Snow games, yeah. So I do recall a game in Kansas City where it was really windy, probably like another 10 miles per hour over what's predicted to take place on Sunday. And I remember that the Chiefs only completed one pass of greater than 20 yards because the wind was strong enough to really kind of throw that off for Mahomes. So I think there are elements here that can really impact even good offenses. But I think like these snow games, especially when there's snow on the field, there was a lot of people freaked out about that. I got nervous about it, but it just, I think these good offenses, as you mentioned, still can outperform the bad defenses, and you don't have to worry too bad.
But to your point with the wind, I'm not concerned about playing a Patrick Mahomes in this game. I'm not concerned about playing a Tyreek Hill. I'm not concerned about playing a Kelsey. You're not benching them for 10 to 15 mile an hour winds.
Nope.
Patrick Mahomes will make it work. Now on the other end, with Rivers and some of their offensive pieces, like a Mike Williams,
been playing better as of late.
Even borderline weather, could influence these players. Now Rivers has a much higher corollary when there's precipitation than when there's wind, but his metrics do go down a little bit in the wind. So that's a game that we'll keep an eye on, and if it's something we think you need to be concerned with, if those winds get any higher, we'll definitely let you know.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit and break down some of the caution games that we have out, right? So why don't we start off with the Jets at the Bills, and this is probably one of the more impactful games due to a more persistent, moderate rain event that's expected in Buffalo. So I know you have some statistics here. If you're in the playoffs, you're what Jets do you have left, right? So you might have Le'Veon Bell, you might have Robbie Anderson. You're probably not starting any of the other, Sam Darnold and Crowder's been a little bit too unpredictable there with volatility. So are you feeling okay in this game playing Robbie Anderson or Le'Veon Bell?
You also have to consider you're playing a tough Buffalo D here. You're not playing the New York Giants. And so I think the upside of these players is capped as is. And now with the persistent rain, it's not something I trust. Now, I will say in a very, very limited sample size for Sam Darnold, he actually did incredibly well in the precipitation. It was a one game, but his QBR was through the roof. He had, I think, like 2 TDs, over 300 yards passing, no interceptions. But that was a one game sample size. So this is one thing we need to caution you about is, you just sometimes think like, oh, there's one game he did really well, so that's going to happen all the time. No, that's not necessarily the case. We also need to consider like, hey, there was one game, and now he's playing a pretty tough Buffalo defense. So Robbie Anderson, if you have a better option, I'd say steer away. This could be another potentially lower scoring affair in the rain if that's persisting throughout the duration of the game. Hopefully you're not playing a Sam Darnold. Hopefully you have a better option there. Le'Veon Bell, if the game's persistently raining, the coaches may make a decision to run the ball a little bit more. He may have some upside, especially as a pass catcher. We know he can do that. And maybe get in the end zone a time or two here. But again, these are options that have shown to be inconsistent throughout the year. So
Yeah, I don't think Le'Veon Bell is going to win you a championship, and you know that Tre'Davious White's going to shut down Robbie Anderson. I just want to comment on that one game that Sam Darnold did play in the precipitation. It was home to Oakland, where the Jets won 34-3. So not a great secondary by any means. Buffalo secondary is going to be way better. So I think that was more of a matchup that was favorable in Sam Darnold's favor, and he could overcome any element there.
And in Buffalo, and to your point, Tre'Davious White's going to be on Robbie Anderson, so you have some tougher corners to contest Sam Darnold here. Now on the other side of the ball with Josh Allen. Josh Allen, from the games in 2 games with precipitation for Josh Allen, he has only had 1 TD throwing the ball. He only had averages about 139 yards per game passing. The Jets have actually played pretty well of late, relatively. Actually, the first time the Jets played the Bills earlier this year, the Jets defense scored 18.2 fantasy points in our league with, I think, multiple interceptions. So I'm cautioning Josh Allen here in the rain in a messy environment. He may get a few more rushing yards if he feels he needs to rush, if he can't find an open receiver and conditions get bad. But if Josh Allen was playing a bad defense here, I would say I'm not as concerned. But the Jets have actually shut things. I wouldn't say shut things down, but they've proven themselves, and I'm a little bit nervous throwing Josh Allen out there.
Yeah, the Jets have been playing pretty well as of late, but I think this is a game. Oh, I think this is be a game where the Bills beat up on my Jets. I think the Bills have a better defense, a better team in general. But you never know. These divisional rivalries are always tough. They fight tough.
So how do you feel about Josh Allen here? If you're in the championship, or if you're in a DFS, are you looking at him as a value play here? Are you looking for someone else playing the New York Jets?
Yeah, I'm gonna go again. I think I'm gonna try to find value on someone else here in this week. I'm not super thrilled about the weather event here. And even though Josh Allen has a pretty sturdy floor with regards to his legs, I think he's gonna be a great quarterback as he goes and matures in his career. I'm just not sure I'm willing to pay to pay that money. It's probably priced around 6,000 DraftKings. I have to take a double check on that, but
yeah,
I'd probably go somewhere else.
And here's my thing. I'm not saying, and I don't think we're saying that, hey, Josh Allen definitely won't have a good game. It's not like, it's not in the cards for him this to be a possibility. It's very, it could happen. Yeah. Josh Allen has 2 TDs, 300 yards passing. What we're saying is that there's some volatility here. Yeah, and that there's some risk in playing him in this game against what a Jets defense, which has shown up, which seems more. They don't always show up, as Mike knows, being a Jet fan.
Yeah. But they show up at the wrong times. Let's be honest.
You just don't know. So I'm not as confident in this matchup. Again, we're not saying it's impossible, but again, there's some risk inherent with the weather and the play.
If I was going to do a secondary for a quarterback there, I kind of would lean towards Daniel Jones against the Eagles, just because I know there's going to be points scored in that game. Eagles are going to be trying to fight for a playoff berth, and the Giants are going to be slinging it. So I think Daniel Jones is a good prospect. And
those tough divisional games, though, against we saw Daniel Jones pick apart the Redskins, but it seems like when you're getting into the Eagles and the Cowboys, sometimes those games are a little bit slow to play. But we'll see. I'm excited. I'm going to be watching that game. And Daniel Jones is proving himself as a rookie QB if he limits those mistakes.
Yeah.
5 TDs against the Redskins. There's no reason he can't maybe put up 5 TDs, but there's no reason he can't put up a solid 2 or 3 DDs, 300 yards against a lackluster Philly secondary.
All right, let's move it up to our second caution game here, Sean. And this is a game in the Battle of the Ohio Valleyans here, the Browns at Bengals.
Yeah.
And this is a game where we're expecting a potential thunderstorm squall line to move through with some potential stratiform rain. So meaning a burst of heavy rain with some wind, potentially maybe some lightning thunder, and then maybe more of like a steady light rain event after that. And this is potentially at some point during the game. So, whatever you have some important pieces here potentially to your roster. If you're in the playoffs, you might be considering playing any of the running backs for the Browns. You got Nick Chubb, who's been having a great year, one of the best rushers of the year. And then you also have Kareem Hunt now, who's been taking a lot of those secondary work and passing. He's been playing pretty reasonably good. He's beaten my expectations, but he's been a good running back. And then in the passing game, I can tell you this right now. If you have Odell Beckham Jr., you're not in your championship game because he's just had a horrible year. You maybe have gotten lucky with Landry, but you probably aren't playing him or Baker Mayfield. And on the other side of the coin, the Bengals, you're probably not playing Anton Dalton or any of the pass catchers, but you might have Joe Mixon. So what are you thinking here with this game, Sean, for impacts?
Yeah, it's kind of like what you're saying is really true. It's like other than really Nick Chubb, who's you can rely on regardless of him, especially in a rain game where you may have a slight uptick in the number of carries depending on the conditions. Who are you trusting here? Are you playing Baker Mayfield? No. I'm not against a Cincinnati defense that seems to be either right on or way off as of late. Are you playing OBJ? Are you playing Jarvis Landry? Are you playing Tyler Boyd?
Yeah.
Are you playing Mixon? I think the only players that I really want to consider here are Mixon and Chubb, and you may have them if you're in your championship. But for both of these quarterbacks, like Baker Mayfield, he's had. Again, sample size is limited here. One game in the rain. His yards in that game are 194. That's about 30 or 40 yards down than what he completes on average. He had one TD and one interception. He was 20 for 31. Okay, is that going to win you a championship though? Probably not. That's probably along the lines what I'm thinking he's going to get in this game is maybe a touchdown or two, 200, 250 yards. Again, are you looking for a breakout performance here or not? Is he maybe safe? I don't know. But I don't know if I want safe in my championship run. I want somebody maybe with a little bit more upside. Now, to be honest, Dalton has played okay in the rain. Again, you're not playing him, but if you're looking at options like a Boyd, for instance, his QBR is actually up about 10 points. He's 2-1 with TD to interception ratio. His yards per attempt are up around 2 yards. On average in these games. So I don't think he's as influenced by precipitation. So if you have Boyd for whatever reason and you've been rolling with Boyd, keep him out there.
Yeah.
But other than that, Jarvis Landry, I'm a little bit cautious with, and OBJ I am as well.
Yeah. I think this is going to be a good spot for the running backs. I know last week Nick Chubb didn't really have a great game. Kind of burned me in the playoffs in my championship match, to be honest. But I think he's going to bounce back here against the Bengals, not great rush defense. And also on the other side of the coin, Joe Mixon, I think, excuse me, the Browns are going to be beatable in the running game as well. So I think, and we've seen Joe Mixon actually not be dependent on game script. So in a game where there's going to be some precipitation and maybe some slipperiness with the ball, it's going to be wet from the rain. I feel a little bit better with playing these running backs. It's not like I'm shying away from them from the rain. So,
yeah, I'm just trying to look at here, like, hey, relative, whatever the defense done, and the last time the Browns played Cincinnati was on December 8th, and that was a 27-19 final, and the Cleveland Browns racked up around 12 points on defense and did have an interception and 2 sacks. So
that was not with Dalton though, right? That was with
that's true.
Yeah, Dalton just came back in.
That's true. So with these QBs, I guess what we're trying to say here is we don't have a whole lot of confidence on anybody going into this game, other than if you have Mixon and you have Chubb, go with your stars in these games or in this game. but try to find other options as wideouts.
All right. So, those were the two caution games that we're paying attention to. We're going to be providing those updates as we can here on this weekend. And there, as Sean mentioned, there's these uncertain, like especially what happened last week. There's these precipitation events that can kind of shift in the models and change with timing, and that's what we're worried about here as well. So we're going to pay attention to that as we move forward. Are there any other games that you want to talk about, Sean, before and some of these games with potential showers, but no, okay. So
no, we don't want to touch those yet. We're not confident enough to really put anything out. That's going to be something that we'll focus on Sunday. We usually get some questions coming in depending on how the weather shifts, and if we're putting out additional cautions, we'll usually get questions filtering in. So follow us on Twitter. If things look to shift at all, we'll be updating weather on Saturday and Sunday, but nothing right
now. At FFWeatherguys on Twitter, and also our YouTube channel. So that's it. That's week 17 weather, and that concludes the fantasy football weather guys season. We've really had a great time. This has been a learning experience for both of us. We're sad we don't have Colin here to close it out. He wanted to be on, but he couldn't make it. But he said hello to everyone, and he hopes everyone had a happy holidays, as we all did here as well.
Yeah, and we want to thank you all out there. Thanks for bringing in those questions. Thank you for the feedback. Thank you for the subscribers. Again, like Mike said, this has been a really fun process for us, but it's been a learning process for us as well. And so we're going to be keeping things going in the off season in terms of we're going to be developing some new things for you guys next year to make things easier for you and easier for us to give you up-to-date, accurate information concerning the weather. So we're really, really excited on the off season to be working on some things, and we may be putting out a video or two in the off season as well. So look for us then.
Yeah. All right, guys. That's it. Have a good luck in your rest of your season if you're playing, and if you're doing DFS, good luck. Make sure to pay attention to the weather, and we'll see you next year.
We'll see you next year, guys. Bye.